everyone. Hope you all had a great lunch. Greg already introduced me to you all, but I'm still going to go again. My name is DebSmita Santra. I joined Red Hat back in 2018 and worked with the OpenShift team and contributed to the developer console. This year in March, I joined the Janus community project, which is Red Hat's midstream community project for building plugins and golden path templates for Backstage. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about Backstage and how it has addressed the challenges in developers' lives and improved the developer experience. And that will be followed by a demo of the showcase application that is based on Backstage. But before I delve into Backstage, I'm going to start by talking about the challenges in the journey of software development and what role does developer platform play in the lives of developers. So development in today's world can be challenging and tedious with the explosion of infrastructure tools, technologies, frameworks, SaaS offerings, and every organization adopting different technologies and tools can lead to fragmented ecosystems. Developers who have to adapt to all these new resources, tools, technologies, approaches struggle to cope with fragmented ecosystems. They can no longer bury themselves in IDE and focus on development and innovation. And this is where an internal developer platform comes into the picture. It's a platform that glues together tools and tech in a way that is meant to reduce the cognitive load on the developers and enhance their productivity without abstracting the context and underlying technologies. It provides a unified self-service platform with seamless access to all the resources a developer needs that can be embedded in the platform, which the platform teams can expand and grow as new resources become available. Essentially, an IDP needs to be opinionated, as in it has to be tailored to the team's requirements and preferences. Spotify then came up with a solution in the face of fragmented infrastructure that revolutionized the developer experience. They call it Backstage. It's an open source platform for building developer portals, which Spotify built for their own engineering development teams and donated it to CNCF. It's a platform that integrates tools, tech, services, source code, documentation in a cohesive and streamlined environment, and provides a great way to keep the developers in context and reduce some of the cognitive load. And the best part is, it can be extensively customized and extended. This is what Backstage would look like when deployed inside a company using certain plugins. It has a core component UI that is thin client-side wrapper around the plugins, comes with common core components and libraries. Then there are plugins. Plugins are the building blocks of Backstage. It allows you to expose any kind of infrastructure or a software development tool in your application platform. In Backstage, your plugin can be a standalone one, which is the Tech Radar plugin. It simply renders hard-coded information and doesn't make any API calls. Then there are plugins with backend services, like the Software Catalog plugin and the Circle CI plugin. The main difference between these two plugins is that the Service Catalog plugin makes API calls to the Service Catalog backend that exists within the Backstage ecosystem. And the Circle CI plugin makes API calls to a third-party service with the help of the proxy backend service that comes with backend. And finally, there are plugins like the Software Catalog backend with database needs. So the Backstage backend comes with inbuilt database feature that takes care of the persistent needs of your plugin. So the users integrating your backend plugin in their Backstage instance do not have to worry about deploying a database. The backend database feature will take care of that. Let's see what are the benefits of using Backstage. Out of the box, Backstage has some core features that are super useful for the platform engineering teams to manage complex software ecosystem. I'll go over these core features in my upcoming slides, and I would like to say that these core features enhance developers' productivity by streamlining workflows and reducing setup and configuration time. Starting with the software catalog. This is one of the most crucial features that Backstage has. It is a centralized hub to keep track of all your applications, your services, documentation, source code with ownership information, and which helps bring back the transparency that enterprises teams tend to lose with scale. In the demo later on, I will show how you can bring in your own components in the software catalog. The Kubernetes plugin. This feature allows the developers to monitor their services across the clusters. It is made up of two plugins, a front-end plugin and a back-end plugin. The front-end plugin exposes all the information to the end users, and the back-end plugin wraps all the mechanics to connect to Kubernetes cluster and fetch the relevant information. The user experience is very uniquely designed for developers rather than DevOps engineers, and as a result, developers do not need cluster management skills to be able to perform tasks like checking the status of their services, checking the status of their pods, if the pods are showing errors, and most importantly, the pod logs. The software templates. These are the golden part templates because they encompasses industry's best practices to maintain and scale. These are essentially pre-architected skeletons of code that are meant to ease developer onboarding by creating a scaffolder in their repository. And the scaffolder contains all the fundamental files and important libraries that you would require when you are that will help you kickstart your development process. The Backstage search. This search mechanism allows developers to search for any resource that resides in their Backstage ecosystem. It's not a search engine itself, rather it provides an interface between your Backstage instance and the search engine of your choice. The platform teams can extend the interface and define the resources that can be searched and even customize the search results. And finally, the tech docs. This is Spotify's in-house docs-like code approach that allows developers and technical content writers to write technical documentation that can live along with their code. The Tech Docs plugin then downloads the markdown documentation from the source code repository and displays it like an HTML site. It is meant to provide asynchronous collaboration between developers. Coming to the Backstage plugin ecosystem. The Backstage marketplace has more than 140 plus plugins contributed by a passionate community of developers. And these plugins are associated with CI/CD, code tracking, issue tracking, monitoring, and many more. Backstage has user guidelines to ensure that the user experience of the plugins remain consistent, and they are all free and open source, and enterprises can integrate these plugins into their Backstage ecosystem and can get started. And finally, let me introduce you all to the Genus project. This is Red Hat's midstream community project for building plugins, golden path templates. We even have a Helm chart to deploy an opinionated Backstage instance on Kubernetes cluster, and a showcase application that has all the Red Hat plugins and golden path templates integrated. And without any further delay, let me quickly take you to the demo of the showcase application. This is the Genus showcase application. This is the home page. This is a standalone plugin, doesn't make any API calls, simply renders hard-coded information. Organizations can customize this data with their own organizational data. It is meant to provide quick access to all the useful resources that the developer would need in their day-to-day work. It has quick links to Slack, YouTube channel, mailing list, has some developer tools as well. If I take you to the software catalog, this is the centralized hub where you can track all your services and other resources. And all the table data that you see here is being read from a YAML file that can live with your application source code. If I click on the actions, edit action, it will take you to the YAML file, and if you're familiar with Kubernetes YAML resources, you would know that this looks very similar to that. It has an API version. The kind is the kind of your entity, which is component here. It has metadata information, some links, which will show up on the overview page of your component. It has annotations, which are being consumed by plugins. It has spec. They show up on the catalog table and also on the overview page of the component. And depends on will create a dependency graph, which I'm going to show you in some time. If I drill into this application that we are tracking on the catalog, which is the Backstage showcase, this is the overview page. It has some quick links like the Janus website, the Janus showcase application, blogs. Clicking on the view source will take you to the source code repository of your application. And the view tech docs will download the tech docs markdown documentation and display it to you as an HTML site. You can update this documentation by selecting the section of the document that you would like to update, and this will help you create a GitHub issue. Finally, because the GitHub plugin is integrated, you can see this pull request statistics and Argo CD overview status. It has some Red Hat plugins integrated and also some community ones. This is the topology plugin, which helps you visualize the workloads on your Kubernetes cluster. You can click on a workload to view more details about the workload and also see the associated resources. This is the GitHub's plugin, and as it is integrated, you can see all the GitHub issues in the repository. Similarly, for pull requests, the application is deployed with GitHub Actions, and so the CI tab shows the GitHub Actions information. The Argo CD is configured and gives you the Argo CD history here. Then there's Kubernetes plugin. This is one of the Backstage core features. You can see all your clusters here and the resources on your cluster. If you expand the cluster, you can see there are some Tekton pipeline runs, task runs, some deployments. You can expand the deployment to see the pods, even check the pod details and the logs. There's Tekton plugin, which lists all the Tekton pipeline runs running on your cluster. You can drill into a pipeline run to see the visualization and hover on the task to see the steps involved. This is the Quay plugin that's been integrated, and it lists all the images in the Janus IDP Backstage Showcase repository. And finally, the dependencies. This gives you a visual representation of all the resources your component depends on with ownership information. If I take you back to the catalog page, you should be able to add more components to this. If you click on Create, these are the golden path templates. So if you're starting from scratch, you can choose one of these templates that suits your purpose. The wizard will ask you for some information like the organization where you want to create a repository, the ownership information, and the repository name. And once you hit Create, the template engine is going to fetch the scaffolder skeleton from a remote URL and create a repository in the organization you provided, and finally register it in the software catalog. You can also bring in your own component if you have your application source code hosted in your source control repository. So for that, you got to select the register existing component. And here you can provide your URL and if your application source code has the catalog.info YAML, which is the entity file, then you should be able to load your component in the software catalog. I would also like to show you the Backstage Marketplace. Yes, this is the Backstage Marketplace, which has all the free and open source plugins. The plugins under the core features are the ones created by Spotify and also maintained by them. The ones under all plugins are the ones that are contributed by individuals and organizations. If you drill into one of these plugins, it will take you to the README, which will tell you how to integrate a plugin into the Backstage instance. It requires a bit of a coding, but it's all straightforward. And now going back to the presentation. Of course, you can be a part of the Genus community. There are some links. You can join our Slack channel if you have more questions. You can even try out the QR code and try out this showcase application as well. Be a part of the community meetings and have a look at the live demos that we showcase, and many more. And I would also like to show you the Genus website. Here you can find all the plugins that are contributed by Red Hat, and also Golden Path templates. You can submit a proposal if you have one for a Golden Path template, or even for plugins. And if you click on any of these plugins or Golden Path templates, it will take you to the README. So that is all. If you have more questions on the Genus community, or if you want to be a part of it, feel free to find me on the floor. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. If your organization is adopting Backstage, or if already adopted Backstage, then, and if you have questions, I would be happy to answer those. Or please feel free to join our Slack channel and drop in your questions there. Thank you.